these are realistic policies. These are real, concrete policies that do reduce emissions. Most economists, I think, would agree that we are not moving fast enough. We need to move faster. We can afford to move faster, and it's worth the money to move faster.
So tell me about Biden's new climate plan. How effective will it be at tackling climate change?
If you just are going to judge the plan in terms of will it reduce CO2 emissions, will it protect the climate, then the answer is, yeah, it's going to lower emissions and implement policies that protect some vulnerable populations from the consequences of climate change. There are lots of pieces of this plan, right? There's decarbonizing the electricity sector. There's electrifying the transportation sector. There is adding more mass transit. There's providing incentives for improving industrial processes to reduce their CO2 emissions. There are lots of things in this plan that are not just about climate change. This bill probably shouldn't just be judged in terms of just its climate consequences, because it's about creating jobs. It's about getting people back to work during a really serious recession. And so, on the other hand, there's a piece missing from this proposal that every economist would notice first, that to effectively solve the climate problem, you need to somehow arrange to put a price on greenhouse gas emissions.
And pricing emissions, how does that work?
Either way you do it, you can charge a tax, or you can have a cap and trade program the way California and many states do. Those are two ways of putting a price on emissions. And the interesting thing about putting a price on emissions is you end up with this revenue, and you can use this revenue to both bolster what you're trying to accomplish in terms of getting more emission reductions, but also to undo any unfairness that there might be in the program. So if you're going to put a price on emissions, you're going to raise the cost of energy, and that's going to hit poor families the hardest. One way of getting around that is to use the revenue in a way that will offset the unfair distribution of burden to poor families. So we're able to implement a really efficient policy and actually make poor families better off.
Since we are in a recession right now, should we be concerned about losing jobs in the energy sector?
Jobs are important here. And so we can ask, well, so let's talk about coal jobs. We can just get rid of that as a concern. Coal jobs are tiny compared to solar jobs. We ought to be concentrating on how to help coal communities transition away from dependence on this fuel. It's going to happen, and we ought to help with that. Okay. What about natural gas? Natural gas has to go away. Is it going to go away overnight? No. Are those million jobs going to go away next year, the year after, or the year after? No. What's going to happen is we are going to make a transition away from one fuel toward another. The renewables industry is at least as job intensive as the natural gas industry. So if we are moving away from natural gas toward solar, we are going to end up producing at least as many jobs as we give up in the natural gas sector. That is not about jobs. We're moving away from an industry that has a serious negative impact on the planet toward an industry that doesn't. And the new industry employs as many people or more than the one it's replacing.